Good morning. It is the big phase one of the Bihar Assembly Elections. The curtains have risen as 121 seats go to polls today, setting the tone for the political future of the state. Welcome to our special broadcast here on CNN News 18. I'm Zaka Jacob. Like I said, polling is underway in 121 constituencies across 18 different districts. The fate of more than 1,300 candidates to be determined by over 3.5 crore voters. This phase is not just about who wins the maximum number of seats or who gets the maximum vote share. It's a crucial test of two factors which are always important in polls: who has the momentum and who has the alliance strength. The ruling NDA is led by the BJP and the JDU. They are fighting to capitalize on what is a mazboot coalition. The return of allies like Chirag Paswan, Upendra Kushwaha, these are all key factors as the NDA has bolstered on the alliance arithmetic. They are trying to consolidate the crucial SC vote and the Kushwaha vote. On the other side, you have the Mahagathbandhan, but likely a depleted Mahagathbandhan, which is fighting against the odds, against the juggernaut that is the ruling NDA. And then you have the anti-incumbency that both sides have to face. Of course, Nitish Kumar has to face anti-incumbency because he is the chief minister and has been for the last 20 years, almost uninterrupted. And then you have the legacy of the past, which the Mahagathbandhan has to sort of shake off. The moniker of Jungle Raj when Lalu Prasad was chief minister, Rabri Devi was chief minister. Can Tejashwi Yadav knock off all of that legacy of the past, as it were? And then you have, of course, the other factors that all add up as we can bring out more factors that are going to drive voter preferences today. Whether it is the Mahila voter, and we've seen that in the last election, statewide, women outvoted men by almost 5%. So will the Mahila voter turn up in huge numbers as they did for the NDA last time around? The youth voter. There are a lot of players who are vying for the youth vote. It's not just Tejashwi Yadav who's promising 1 crore jobs. It's also PK, Prashant Kishore, and his new entity, new political formation, Jan Suraj, which is also trying to appeal to the youth. Will all of this work ultimately? Those are the X factors in this poll. I want to open this up to our guests who are joining us here in our studios. Rahul Shivshankar, consulting editor with Network 18. Nistula Hebbar is political editor with The Hindu. Pallavi Ghosh, our senior editor here in our studios. And we'll also be joined by Arunima and Payal, our senior reporters who are joining us from the ground in Patna. I want to go across to Rahul Shivshankar first, nice and early in the morning. Rahul, what are you looking for in terms of what will shape and define the contest today?
Phase one, I believe, is a male-dominated phase, as we know, simply because despite the fact that everyone's focused on the woman vote, the least number of women candidates have been fielded today. So it's male-dominated. Unfortunately, there's a huge gap between what people profess. Only 10% women in the fray. And 33% candidates are running as independents. But if you just set all this aside, Zaka, and you really look at the larger picture, fundamentally, I believe that it's the smaller parties that are actually going to determine this particular phase of the contest. So on the other side, you have the VIP that has crossed from the NDA and gone to the MGB, and LJP that was sitting outside both these fronts is now with the NDA. And I believe that's going to make a crucial difference in phase one. Last time, if you remember, phase one was an absolute disaster for the NDA, and they had to play catch up in the next two phases. This time, there's been a little bit more in the sense that the seats that were part of phase two, some of those seats have been incorporated into this phase one. So that's why you have 121 states sort of divided, 121 this time, 122 next time, which is the next phase. And because of the LJP, you're already beginning to see in the Lok Sabha, for example, if you looked at that result and you projected it onto an assembly map, you already saw gains for the NDA. So if that pattern is holding, then the NDA is more comfortably placed in phase one than it was previous. But let me just open this up. Suhail Seth with us bright and early this morning. always somebody who gets off to a flying start with something different to say. So he'll say it. You bring in the common man's perspective, but also a studied perspective from that of a journalist and an author. How are you seeing this?
From all the reports that I'm getting, and I'm getting feedback from, the marketing end, whether these are companies, consumer behavior, all of that. There is no question that Lalu Yadav's infamy is an overhang on their party. And when I say infamy, it relates to corruption of the highest order. It relates to a family stranglehold. And I think that's going to be a point of worry. A. B. I also believe, for whatever it's worth, Rahul, and I say this with grave respect and dignity, I don't think Rahul Gandhi has been able to galvanize the forces that he claims to have galvanized. Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, as you know, are the masters of the game as far as elections are concerned. If you saw, which you did in your opening, in the opening passage of your show, where you talk about how Nadda says, R is for Rangdari. People are fed up. Also, you have to remember that the youth in Bihar has largely remained totally unaffected by the so-called caste issue, to my mind. So I still believe it's a big issue. I disagree slightly with the graphic. I don't think it's going to be close. It's going to be pretty clear. Prashant Kishore, for all the good that we hear about him, it's one thing to give quotable quotes, and it's quite another to win at the ballot. And I'll finally say, many of us have advised politicians and political parties on campaigns. That's quite a different ballgame. A consultant can't suddenly become the candidate.
That's true.
That's my initial remark.
And of course, for startup political parties, Aka, we were discussing this earlier this morning also, you require a lot from the back. So you have to have some sort of a social movement. There have only really been two that were successful, AAP and the NTR at that experiment, the Telugu Desam experiment. But that all of that came up because of language politics, identity politics, and of course the AAP came up on the back of a massive people's movement. There was an anti-corruption movement. So PK lacks that. But I want to ask you, Nistula, Pallavi, you've been on the ground there. Is there a lot of anti-incumbency? Because fundamentally, that's really what makes new parties successful or challengers very successful.
Actually, when I went there, and I've been to cover elections in Bihar from 2005, that was the year we had two elections, one in March and one in later October, November, with a period of president's rule in between. And that was the end of, Lalu Prasad Yadav family's rule there. So I have seen then in 2020, which was the COVID election, where there was a huge number of migrants who were walking back to Bihar. I mean, none of us have forgotten those visuals of people just walking back home because there were no other means of transport, etc. There was a lot of anti-incumbency at that time, and it was seriously the women who basically bailed out the NDA in that election. It was very, very clear that the constituency that Nitish really, cultivated finally paid off for him in 2020. This time around, I did not find that there were a lot of people who were upset with Nitish or who had had bad things to say about him. There were other issues which they were talking about, which was around him, which is A, the state of his health. B,
people
whether...
were concerned about that?
Yes, because of, some videos and stuff that were making rounds about his public behavior as well. And then there was talk that whether or not, even if the NDA wins, whether Nitish Kumar will continue to remain Chief Minister.
You think the BJP was forced to sort of clarify on that question?
Which is what led to the BJP to clarify, because Nitish and the party there, I mean, with their record of switching sides, people would have said कि ठीक है इनको दे देंगे, BJP को उतना देने की जरूरत नहीं है, ये तो वैसे भी अपना कर ही लेंगे. You see, Nitish is the balancing force in that state between the two extremes of, Lalu and BJP's Hindutva. And if he's at the top, which he has been for the last 20 years, there is a lowering of the, social temperature
Did you
in
hear
the
a
state.
lot of the Hindutva rhetoric like we saw even during the Lok Sabha
in
elections?
fact, Giriraj Singh said something in the
Yeah.
middle and then he was shut down pretty
Absolutely.
quickly.
This is what we were discussing too, that this time it's really been issue-centric, Pallavi. That's what I have sort of gleaned from speaking to people and observing.
Well, I'm going to hazard a guess. Whenever you talk about a regime change, you talk about a wave election. I never found that wave election. I mean, I never found, I'm just corroborating what Nistula is also saying, I never saw people angry on the ground anyway. Even in the Yadav, dominated areas where his voter Adhikar Yatra, so I tried to retrace that and they were largely Yadav dominated areas. Over there also, obviously they were critical a bit of the BJP and a bit of the JDU because they're obviously pitching for Tejashwi Yadav. But when you speak to them off camera and all, they were not angry with Nitish Kumar as such. Because if there was that anger, then that would have given some hope to the Mahagathbandhan that perhaps there's going to be a huge change. And this time round, there are just too many players, little bit, like those woodpecker types, like a PK may not. Obviously, I don't think I agree with Suhail on this. I don't think he's going to make much of a change. But the fact that he's there, and there are a couple of young people.
I think PK lost the battle when he said that, he's not
He's
going
not
to
contesting.
contest.
Yeah.
I asked you this yesterday.
Yes.
I mean, if you are in the middle of battle and you're the general there, you don't say, I'm
You
not
don't
going to lead
withdraw.
my troops.
Not
Right?
just
Why
that.
would he?
And
Why
in
would he?
Bihar,
Why would he
in
withdraw?
Bihar, the people are very.
I just want to
the
say one thing.
Damang and all these kind of things. So
Yeah. Suhail.
I just want to say one thing which Pallavi mentioned. From all the work that one has done, and, I was lucky to handle Vajpayeeji's campaign in 1999. Anger and not having anger is actually not a good thing. Because sometimes, if you're not angry, it means you're disinterested. The worst thing can be, and there I think Nistula's points are very, very valid. We have to remember that either people are resigned to their fate, कि भाई Nitish nahi aana hai, whether he comes from one party or the other. So a little bit of anger helps create a swing, no matter which side. So, if you're not angry, indifference in an election can be the worst antidote.
I mean, the
to anyone's
2024
victory.
election was about indifference. The people didn't show up, and that's why the BJP went
Absolutely.
from 303 to 240.
So being angry is good.